Hello everyone, and welcome to another Cut Rate Commander Precon Upgrade Guide, the series in which we take a look at Precon decks and bring them up to cut rate standards. My name is Grazzet, and today we're going to be looking at the Cabaretti Cacophony Precon from Streets of New Capenna and its face commander, Kitt Kanto Mayhem Diva, which we'll be bringing up from its roughly $40 price point to an increased budget of $75 after upgrades. But before we continue, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you like this content and would like me to continue making more videos like this in the future. And if you're feeling particularly generous, consider buying me a coffee at the link in the description to keep me caffeinated as I work on more of these builds. So with that out of the way, let's start by taking a look at the commander and playstyle. Kitt Kanto Mayhem Diva is a 3/3 cat bard druid that costs 1, a red, a green, and a white with the following abilities. When Kitt Kanto enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 green-white citizen creature token. At the beginning of combat on each player's turn, you may tap 2 untapped creatures you control. When you do, target creature that player controls gets +2/+2 and gains trample until end of turn. Goad that creature. Breaking down her core stats, Kitt possesses a mid-size CMC, a below-average stat block for her cost, which is made up for by the fact that she comes in with an extra 1/1 body, and possesses the ability to turn our creatures into on-demand goad each combat and make its target deadlier to boot. Breaking down her ability further, this targeted goad is a potent mana-less source of disruption that we can use to both protect ourselves and hamper our opponents. On the protection side of things, so long as we have 2 untapped bodies at the beginning of any player's combat, we can ensure that their nastiest creature will not only be unable to attack us, but also be forced to attack someone else and hit them harder than usual. And on the flip side, we can instead force attacks from utility creatures our opponents would rather hold back, turning it into a pseudo-removal spell so long as our other opponents have blockers up. And because Kitt comes with an extra body when we cast her, we can immediately start using that goad as soon as she comes down. And lastly, it's important to note that since this occurs on each player's combat step, we do have the option to goad a creature of our own if we need to make it bigger or grant it trample to ensure it can get in for damage. So as we can see, our commander wants us to have a wide board state to enable her to disrupt our opponents on every combat, which is why we'll be taking this Precon upgrade in a small tokens direction, aiming to flood the board with power 2 or less tokens to enable Kitt to disrupt our opponents as often as possible, and then delivering the finishing blow once they've reached critical mass. Looking at our token creation first, the core build already has a solid foundation of both mass and steady token generation, which we'll be building upon to ensure we can outpace our opponents with the sheer amount of bodies we can bring to the table despite their small stats. And as we're creating these tokens, we'll be using both payoffs from the core build and some additions of our own to not only ensure we get value out of them as they're being created, but also using their small size and large numbers as an advantage to enable them to attack more easily, deal extra damage as they swing in or come into play, and even dodge our own wipes to continue fighting on as we level our opponent's boards. Then, once our tokens reach critical mass, we can drop one of the finishers that came with the build or that we added in to take our token's small stats and pump them to enormous levels, overrunning our opponent's boards and life totals in one fell swoop. So let's sit back and enjoy the show, because Kitt Kanto is taking center stage in this performance. And with the spotlight squarely on her, she'll show our opponents just what Jetmir saw in that small-time nobody singing for change all those years ago. With magic woven into every spellbinding note she sings, she commands the flow of battle just as easily as she commands the stage. And with her throng of fans at her beck and call, our opponents certainly won't live to see the encore. So now that we have a better understanding of the commander and playstyle, let's take a look at the cards we'll be keeping from the base build. Starting off with the creatures that made the cut, we'll be keeping the most efficient utility creatures, token creators, and creature payoffs the core build has to offer. On the utility side of things, both Sakura Tribe-Elder and Wood Elves keep their spots, each providing us with solid land-based ramp to help speed up and fix our mana base, and their small bodies synergizing very well with our payoffs to get us even more value as they come in. Then moving on to token creation, Scoot Swarm of course makes the grade for being an all-star token generator that, considering how much land-based ramp this build will be running, can quickly take over games by us just ramping and making our land drops. The Legends Zerzoth Chaos Rider and Arasta of the Endless Web carry over from the core build as well, the former punishing instant speed card draw with the damaging devil tokens he creates and enabling it himself with his hand disruption, and the latter profiting off spell slinging by creating tokens with reach to intercept pesky flying threats. Moving on to our token payoffs, both Rumor Gatherer and Champion of Lambholt make it into the final build, the first providing us with repeatable card selection and card advantage as our tokens come in, and the second quickly becoming massive and granting our tokens AoE evasion as it does so to enable easier attacks. Similarly, Best Soul Nourisher also stays in, slowly growing larger and larger as our 1/1 tokens come into play, then converting those counters into a massive on-attack anthem for all our 1/1s when we're ready to crack in for damage, all while allowing us to stack our attack triggers so we benefit from our power 2 or less payoffs before she grows them. And finally, our last creature carryovers are Thunderfoot Baloth and Gahiji Honored One, the former's AoE Anthem and Trample, and the latter's on-attack pump for our creatures and for our opponent's creatures against each other, making them solid top ends to crank up our token's damage output and close out games. Proceeding to our kept instance, we'll start off by keeping the best removal the core build has to offer, with Artifact Mutation and Aura Mutation both staying in as efficient removal that deals with common back row threats while creating additional bodies for us to use, and Path to Exile and Beast Within keeping their spots as well to efficiently deal with creature and permanent base threats respectively with minimal downside. Cabaretti Charm also makes the grade here, its creature-dependent removal being decent, but arguably its mini instant speed overrun effect being even better to enable us to get our opponents out of the blue, and even its token creation mode being useful if we just need a few extra bodies on board. The token creation spells Call the Coppercoats and March of the Multitudes carry over as well, each of which allow us to create instant armies of tokens on our opponent's turns, enabling us to assemble massive board states out of nowhere, and setting up any finishers we may have in hand when the turn gets back to us. And finally, Boros Charm and Grand Crescendo close out our instant carryovers, each providing our hard-earned board states with cheap board wipe protection, and their extra modes and token creation being nice add-ons as well. Quickly running down our kept sorceries, Cultivate of course stays in the build by being an excellent source of land-based ramp to both speed up and fix our mana base. Harmonize keeps its spot by providing us with no-nonsense draw that's not dependent on our board state to use properly. Indulge to Excess makes the grade by effectively doubling our creature count on the turn we use it and following it up with a massive surge of ramp afterwards as a payoff. Fell the Mighty carries over by working very well alongside our 1/1 tokens to destroy all other creatures of power 2 or greater. And lastly, Vivian Stampede closes out our kept sorceries by being a solid finisher that, should we fail to knock out all our opponents, gives us some cards as a consolation prize. Moving on to our enchantment holdovers, Beastmaster's Ascension makes the grade as a cheap finisher that comes online the turn it comes down with a wide enough board state to overrun our opponents. Prosperous Partnership stays in for the ability it provides us to turn our untapped tokens into treasure generation while giving us 2 extra bodies to work with. Outpost Siege makes the cut as either a draw source if we're light on bodies or a payoff for our creatures to turn them into additional removal or burn as they're dealt with. Felidar Retreat stays in as a good source of bodies as we make our land drops and ramp that we can eventually use to power up our whole board once we go wide enough. And finally, Assemble a Legion makes it into the final build as a self-sufficient, if slow, token generator that cranks out more and more bodies for us to use and overwhelm our opponents if we drop it early enough. Then looking at the artifacts that made it in, the Mana Rock suite consisting of Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, and Felwar Stone all stay to provide our build with excellent ramp and or fixing for our mana base, and Idol of Oblivion carries over to provide the build with steady card advantage as we create our tokens that we can later crack for a huge body if we need the extra board presence. Skipping over Walkers since there are none in the base build, we'll move straight to our land base, where Command Tower and Jungle Shrine both stay in since they can tap for any of our colors in this 3-color build. Mossfire Valley, Sungrass Prairie, and Rugged Prairie keep their spots since they provide us with some solid filtering to help fix our colors. Canopy Vista, Cinder Glade, Fortified Village, and Game Trail all make the cut since they can tap for 2 of our colors and we're running enough basics to make sure they can come into play untapped. Exotic Orchard stays in since it can usually find us the mana we need off our opponent's lands since we're in 3 colors. Thriving Bluff, Thriving Grove, and Thriving Heath all keep their spots for being decent on-demand fixing for any color we may need the instant they come down. And Myriad Landscape stays in for the ramp it provides our build from our land slot. Both Castle Ardenvale and Castle Embereth will also be keeping their spots, each providing utility in the form of additional bodies or instant speed pump to grow and power up our boards. And finally, all 4 plains, 4 mountains, and 8 forests from the core build make it in as well. That leaves us with a final tally of 66 cards including basic lands we'll be keeping from the base build, leaving us with 34 cards to upgrade. So now that we've covered all the cards that made the cut from the core build, let's move on to our upgrades. Starting off with our creature upgrades, we'll be beefing up our token production and creature payoffs to get us even more bodies on board and generate us value as we do so. On the token production side of things, we'll be swapping out Sizzling Soloist, whose block prevention is nice but not impactful enough, and Boss's Chauffeur, whose floor as a 5-mana 1/1 makes it a tad bit too unreliable to run, and replacing them with Tilonali's Summoner and Emiria Angel, both of which can get us more 1/1s on board by either pumping mana into them or making our land drops and ramping, which are easy enough for us to do in this build. Master of Ceremonies, Sylvala Explorer Returned, and Fabine Boss's Confidant all fail to make it into the final build as well, as we would prefer not to give our opponents resources in this build if we can avoid it, so we'll be replacing them with Loyal Apprentice, Patrol Signaler, and Amara Soul of the Accord, all of which provide us with a steady stream of bodies turn after turn, the first creating them with evasion to get cheeky damage in, and the latter 2 being potentially usable more than once per rotation to build our board even faster. The legend Kazul Tyrant of the Cliffs then also gets cut, his ability being a fantastic attack deterrent but usually not generating any tokens for us, so he'll be swapped out for Rith the Awakener, who's both a huge evasive beatstick to crack in for damage safely, and gives us an enormous amount of tokens when it does connect for only a nominal mana cost. Next we'll be removing Roseroom Treasurer, whose treasure generation is nice, but we'd rather have land-based ramp in this build, as well as Magus of the Wheel, which can find a better home in a more wheel-centric build, and adding in the legends Ovia Pashari Sage Life Crafter and Rice the Redeemed to replace them, each of them providing us with even more token creation alongside token payoffs in the form of either huge creatures or multiplying our tokens to grow our board even further. Then switching gears from token creators to payoffs, both Agitator Ant and Orzhov Advocus both fail to make the grade, as permanently buffing our opponent's creatures is a bit too much of a downside for us to justify running them, so instead we'll be upgrading them to Mentor of the Meek and Welcoming Vampire, both of which turn our steady stream of small tokens into card advantage to ensure our hands remain nice and full throughout the course of the game. Next, the non-creatures Commander Sphere, Sylvan Offering, and Naya Panorama all get the axe, in favor of some additional creature payoffs in the form of Witty Roastmaster, Nullmage Shepherd, and Subira Tilzidi Caravaner, all of which are better suited for our token-heavy build by granting said tokens ETB burn, back row removal, and a way to bypass blockers with the option to generate card advantage, making them much deadlier and useful despite their small size. Nearing the end of our creature upgrades, we'll be swapping out Life of the Party, which is a better fit for a more goad-focused build, for Drumbellower instead, whose ability to untap all our creatures on each upkeep generates us a huge amount of extra mileage both from our commander and from effects that tap down our creatures for value, making it incredibly useful in this build. And finally, we'll be exchanging the Mana Dork Leafkin Druid for another source of ramp in the form of Springbloom Druid, who works a bit better at fixing our mana base while ramping and procs our landfall token generators as well. Moving on to our instant upgrades, we'll start off by refining our removal by removing Cabaretti Confluence and Bloodthirsty Blade, both of whose effects are a bit underwhelming in this build, and adding in Chaos Warp and Generous Gift in their stead, both of which are all-star removal options to deal with any type of permanent threat that we may encounter. Then for our last instant change, we'll be cutting Seize the Spotlight, whose effect is powerful but ultimately doesn't fit our game plan, for Harrow, giving us more land-based ramp and fixing to work with our landfall token creators and help ensure our mana base grows smoothly. Quickly running down our sorcery changes, the Hideaway Land Windbrisk Kites get swapped out in favor of Rampant Growth to help us ramp more reliably in the early game and fix our mana. Shamanic Revelation and Camaraderie, due to being too mana hungry and board dependent sources of draw, get exchanged for Rite of Harmony and Escape to the Wilds, both still filling in the role as card advantage sources but either being much cheaper and reusable or not dependent on our board and ramping us, which is a decent advantage over their predecessors. The mediocre wipes Martial Coup and False Floor get exchanged for Dust to Dawn and Solar Tide, which are effectively one-sided wipes in our build to ensure our token army stays alive while wiping out our opponents, with the former even throwing in some recursion for our smaller creatures to boot. And finally, Crash the Party, which is a fine finisher but takes a bit too much to set up, gets traded in for Titanic Ultimatum, whose massive AoE pump and keyword distribution will enable our token armies to run over anything and everything if it resolves. Proceeding to our enchantment upgrades, we'll improve upon our token creation by switching out the 2 food-dependent Killer Service and the 2 slow Sandworm Convergence for Retreat to Emeria and Rabble Rousing, both of which can get us tokens faster and more reliably, the former as we make our land drops and can alternatively be used to pump our board to help us push for lethal, and the latter whenever we attack and eventually gets us an easy-to-access free spell thanks to its Hideaway, which is always appreciated. Then moving back to upgrading our token payoffs, the suboptimal token creators Awakening Zone and Scepter of Celebration, as well as the middling land Ash Barrens, all get the axe in favor of Impact Tremors, Cavalcade of Calamity, and Raid Bombardment, all of which make our tokens significantly deadlier as they ETB and or swing in with their guaranteed burn damage to soften up our opponents before we deliver the finishing blow. Next, Intangible Virtue, whose effect is normally fine but its static stat boost conflicting with our 2 power or less payoffs, gets exchanged for Quest for Renewal, which serves as another way to consistently untap our creatures to get more frequent uses out of Kitt's Goad and other tap payoffs, especially on smaller board states where we don't have as many bodies. And for our last enchantment upgrade, the somewhat random inclusion of Duelist Heritage will be swapped out for Font of Fertility, whose cheap land-based ramp and fixing serves this build much better than a single target double strike does. Then skipping our artifacts and planeswalkers, who have no new additions, and moving straight to our land upgrades, we'll be swapping out Path of Ancestry and Temple of Triumph for Corrosive Verge and Blighted Woodland, the land ramp they provide being much more valuable to us than the scry that the previous lands did. And finally, Cabaretti Courtyard gets cut in favor of Vitu-Ghazi the City Tree to provide our build with one last source of tokens from the land slot just in case we need it. So now that we've covered all 34 cards we've upgraded from the core build, let's take a look at the breakdown for this Precon upgrade. This deck currently has 26 creatures including the commander, 13 instants, 10 sorceries, 12 enchantments, 4 artifacts, 0 planeswalkers, and 35 lands. Taking a look at the stats that matter to our game plan, we have 26 cards that create power 2 or less tokens, 19 creatures with power 2 or less, 9 cards that care about power 2 or less, 12 sources of ETB attack and death triggers for our creatures, 10 AoE pump sources to buff up all our creatures, 9 cards that can tap or untap our creatures for value, and 2 sources of board wipe protection, leaving our final build with a large amount of token production to flood our board with small bodies, payoffs for those small tokens as well as the small creatures in our deck, further means to weaponize them as they come in, attack and die, or alternatively tapping and untapping them for additional value, protecting them until we're ready to play our finishers and close out the game. For general deck stats, we have 16 ramp sources, 10 card draw sources, 10 targeted removal sources, and 3 board wipes. Our ramp being slightly higher than normal to proc our landfall token creation more regularly while fixing our mana base, and our other core stats falling within more normal ratios. Looking at our mana curve, we have 5 1-drops, 17 2-drops, 23 3-drops, 8 4-drops, 6 5-drops, 4 6-drops, 1 7-drop, and 1 9-drop. Giving us a fairly aggressive curve that aims to ramp into our commander early, using her to disrupt our opponent's boards each turn while we amass our army of tokens, generating value as we do so until we reach critical mass and overrun the board with a powerful finisher. The final price then comes out to be $74.44 after upgrades. This price does not include tax and assumes that the price you paid for the Precon was $40. The price of the cards was calculated by using the cheapest listed marketplace price on TCG Player at the time of this recording. For upgrades, the slow lands Rockfall Vale, Overgrown Farmland, and Sundown Pass are all solid dual lands to help speed up our mana base considerably, while Jetmir's Garden is a great land to help fix our mana and is fetchable by anything that fetches up non-basic forests. Dragon's Lair Spider, Dragon Broodmother, and Adeline Resplendent Cathar are all superb sources of 1/1 tokens to help us get more bodies on the board. Xenagos the Reveler and Elspeth Sun's Champion both provide solid token creation as well, while supplementing our go wide and less than 2 power playstyle respectively. And Seedborn Muse gives us access to yet another source of untapping our creatures to get more value out of our commander and other tapping abilities. And if we're looking to spend a lot more, Perforos God of the Forge serves as a souped-up impact tremors to really lay in the damage as our tokens come into play, Flawless Maneuver can keep our board intact against wipes for free to provide some superb protection, and Craterhoof Behemoth is the best finisher money can buy to close out games for go-wide decks. Though for quality like this, we'll certainly have to pay the price, roughly costing us about the price of this entire build. Thanks everyone for sticking around until the end of the video. With Cabaretti Cacophony covered, our next and final Precon Upgrade build we'll be covering will be Bedneck Brokers and its face commander, Perry the Pulverizer. So look forward to a keyword counter-focused build featuring him next week. But before we close out, again, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't done so already, as this channel cannot grow without your support. And if you feel like showing your thanks by keeping me caffeinated while I make these videos, please consider buying me a coffee at the link in the description. And if any of you would like to support the channel in a different way, feel free to check out the other deck text floating around my head if you'd like to see the latest builds, or click on the link above for a playlist of all the Cut Rate Commander episodes I've made so far. And with that, have a good one folks, and stay safe.